Hey everyone, welcome back to She Tried It. Today's video is about commonly used crochet and knit lingo or terms. I'm sure this video won't have everything, but hopefully I share enough terms that have tripped me up so someone else doesn't have to be completely clueless like I was. This video is definitely something I wish I had before joining the fiber community. Let's hop straight into these terms. As usual, there will be timestamps below, so this can be a resource for you in the future. Let's start with a few common abbreviations. The first being WIP. This stands for work in progress. It's very common to see the iconic and aesthetically pleasing flat lay of a project someone's working on and a cup of warm or iced coffee. This is how some people show off their WIPs. If you've ever wanted to share your crochet or knit project before it's completed, be sure to add hashtag WIP. There are so many creative people out there that share their WIPs so beautifully, and I'm not one of them. You may have seen me share my WIPs on my Instagram for my Freestyle Fridays or Sundays when I share a gospel song and a Bible verse. The next abbreviation is FO. This stands for finished object. This is the opposite of a WIP. When you have finished a piece, weaved in the ends, blocked it, or maybe done none of those things and you just want to share it, that's when you see hashtag FO. Be sure to follow that hashtag or hashtag finished objects to see completed makes from other crafters. Most of the time when I share a make on my page, it's a finished object. As I stated before, I just don't know how to make my WIPs look aesthetically pleasing. I lumped these next three all together, but MAL stands for make along, a CAL is a crochet along, and a KAL is a knit along. Regardless of the abbreviation, this is a chance for crafters to come together and make the same thing at the same time. I have personally never been part of any type of along, but I have heard great things. If pattern testing is not your thing, this might be a better way for you to go and meet other crafters and learn tips and tricks. If you aren't familiar with pattern testing either, be sure to check out my video I made so you get more details. Some of these alongs also have potential prize winners. So if you're in the mood for some free goodies, this might be something to look into. Okay, so we're done with the abbreviations and now we're just hopping into terms. I remember I first saw the term yarn barf in someone's caption. They said they were taking a break from their WIP to deal with yarn barf. I'll share a few pictures of what this is, but it's just the annoying way that some yarns seem to tangle up on themselves. Along with that tangling, the part that makes it barf is how it seems impossible to untangle. One of the best demonstrations of yarn barf was this hilarious Instagram reel from the turtle trunk.
Wow, I guess this what we doing now.
If you ever go to read the review of the yarn you're about to purchase and a person mentions experiencing yarn barf, you may want to rethink that purchase. Yarn chicken is a dangerous game a lot of people play. I've never been good at it, so I avoid it at all costs. Basically, let's say you're working on a sweater and you just got to the last section of the sweater. You might be working on the sleeve. You have a bit of yarn left and you think, I can finish this sweater with this much yarn. I think. That hesitation and concern you feel means you have just started playing yarn chicken. Let's say your guess was correct and you finish your sweater with the amount of yarn you had left. Congrats, you won yarn chicken. But let's say you get to the cuff of the sleeve and you realize you're a few yards short of what you need. I'm sorry, my dear, but you just lost yarn chicken. Take my advice, don't do it, and just buy an extra ball of yarn to be on the safe side. Crojo is a simple term to break down. It's a combination of crochet and mojo. When you're just filled with creative ideas and you feel like you have more WIPs than hours in the day, that means that you have your Crojo. But when you can't think of anything to make and nothing inspires you, that means you may have lost your Crojo. Not to brag, but I always feel like I have my Crojo intact. That's because I follow some amazing designers and accounts on Instagram, so I constantly know what I want to make next. If I ever lose my Crojo, y'all will be the first to know. I'm not sure if there's a term when it comes to knitting, but any knitters watching, let me know if knit jo is a thing. If not, let me know if you want to make it a thing. These are two different but kind of similar things. To de-stash is when you purge or declutter your yarn. I also want to note that the yarn you own as a crocheter or knitter is called your yarn stash. Hence terms like de-stash and stash busting. Some people pride themselves on having huge yarn stashes. I have seen craft rooms that literally look like libraries, but instead of books, they have yarn. This is not me. I love to de-stash, and there are tons of ways to do it. Some people give away their yarn at various meetups, and some people sell it online. Since absolutely no one in my life crochets or knits, I sell any yarn I want to get rid of on my Mercari store. The link to it is in every single one of my YouTube videos. I basically sell all yarn for $1 to $2 and whatever the cost of shipping is. Be sure to take a look at my Mercari shop. I also got a tip from one of the people I communicate with at We Crochet, and she suggested to reach out to local nursing homes or assisted living places to see if anyone would like leftover yarn. I haven't done this yet, but I'll be sure to let y'all know how that works out. Some people don't want to give away their yarn or sell it for whatever reason, and that's where stash busting comes in. That's when a designer designs a pattern with the purpose of using the leftover yarn you might have laying around. Sometimes a stash busting project is small, like the buttonless mug cozy I made from Lovely Lady. I will link to it in the description box below. Other times, a stash busting project makes use of your scrap yarn, like this gorgeous Stash Dive raglan sweater by Summerlee Designs. I haven't made it, but I'll link to that sweater below as well. Sleeve Island is a term I learned fairly recently. I was in a knit pattern test for Park and Knit working on the Daily Ritual raglan, and someone mentioned how they were stuck on Sleeve Island. Now, Sleeve Island isn't always negative, but when you're stuck there, it is. That's the point where you have finished the body of the sweater, which already takes a while, and you still have to do 2 sleeves and you feel like you're making no progress. Drape is not a complicated term at all. It's just the way to describe how flowy a finished piece is. Drape is a very important characteristic for me. Most, if not all, the garments I've made have amazing drape. But if I had to narrow it down, the 2 garments I've made with Lionbrand Truboo have wonderful drape. Truboo consists of 100% rayon from bamboo. I'm aware that some people are not fans of bamboo yarns, so as an alternative, anything I've made with Curio number 3 has fabulous drape, especially when you use a larger than recommended needle or hook size. Curio number 3 consists of 100% mercerized cotton. Halo is something I only heard about and seen but never experienced until recently when I tested the Sugar Plum Yoke Sweater by Knits and Knots. For that sweater, I used a yarn called Wonder Fluff from We Crochet. Check out that video to see the amazing halo I had in that yarn. That will definitely not be my last time using Wonder Fluff. A yarn halo is that fluff that you tend to see on some yarn fibers. There are tons of yarns out there with the halo, but this one has been one I've used personally. Mohair, which typically comes in lace, is the first type of fiber that comes to my mind when I think of a halo. I'm hoping to get my hands on some mohair in the future. This is something you may be familiar with even if you don't knit or crochet. Pilling typically has a negative connotation, but it's not that bad to me. I personally can't think of anything I made that experienced pilling, but if it did, I wouldn't be completely heartbroken. Pilling can typically be combated with a lint shaver. I'll link to one from We Crochet in the description box below if pilling is something you've been struggling with. Frogging is simply when you undo your crochet work. You have to rip it back to whatever you were working on. You rip it, rip it, rip it, hence the term frogging. Tink is the same thing, but for knit. Tink is simply the word knit spelled backwards. I forgot where I learned those explanations from, but I promise, crocheters and knitters are some witty people. Yarn bombing is a trendy thing that people partake in. I've never seen a yarn bomb in Houston. Honestly, I'm guessing that's something I'd more likely find in Austin. But I was recently introduced to yarn bombing earlier this year when I saw the amazing yarn bomb led by London K. It was this amazing mural of Kamala Harris that included over 150 crocheters. The finished piece was gigantic. I hate to lump all these together, but I think it's very important to differentiate these 4 things for any newbie in the fiber community. A yarn skein is when the yarn is rolled into an oblong shape. Most big box stores sell their yarn in yarn skeins. I think an example is the classic Karen Simply Soft yarn that you can find anywhere from Joann, Michael, and some Walmarts. Next is a yarn hank. If you ever purchased a yarn hank, the most efficient way to use this yarn would be to use both a yarn swift and a yarn ball winder. Both of those are sold on We Crochet, and they even have a video on how to use them. There are absolutely ways to ball your yarn without those tools, but it's much easier with them. Just know that purchasing a yarn hank means a little work needs to be done before the yarn is usable. Next, you have a yarn ball. This is exactly what it sounds like. The yarn is simply spun into a ball. Sometimes that ball can fly all over the place as you're crocheting or knitting. To help with that, yarn bowls were created. They sell yarn bowls at We Crochet, and I'll link to that in the description box below. Finally, there is a yarn cake. This is similar to a ball, except has 2 flat sides to help it not roll around everywhere, and it's typically a center pull. I think the most common yarn cakes are the one from Yarnspirations in the form of their Karen cakes. I have personally never used this yarn, but I see it everywhere and I know it's loved by many. I hope you find these terms and definitions to be helpful. Don't forget to check the description box below for all the things I mentioned in this video. Let me know if there are any other terms you want to know the meaning of, or if there's anything I forgot to mention. See you in my next video. Bye!